Hey, Broker Nation, Scott Beckford here. Today on the show, I have two guests. I have Jules Ferris from $100 Million Journey, and I have Jason Henneberry from Doc Assist. And so we wanted to have them on to talk about the challenges of building a team. And so Jason, having Doc Assist, has lots of staff and hiring and stuff, and so I wanted to get his perspective, but I also wanted to talk to Jules about sort of some of what's been happening with the $100 Million Journey and trying to build our team. And we did have a couple technical difficulties, so we're changing the format. We're going to this live format with way more technology, so we're figuring it out. So please be patient with us as we get that working. So the audio is a little bit not quite so great, but it's good content. And thank you so much for joining in to these discussions. And please leave comments below in the Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you, your challenges or what you're struggling with on hiring for a team. And keep crushing it. Welcome to ILMB Mortgage Brokering Live, and today on the show I have Jason Henneberry from Doc Assist and my business partner Jules Ferris from the $100 Million Journey. And so we want to talk about the struggles of building a team, because the struggle is real, and we've definitely gone through our share of ups and downs, and Jason has a lot of insights in terms of team building, and so we're excited about this. And so this new format that we have, we've got new technology that we're using, which we're just figuring out, so bear with us. We will get the hang of this. And what we want to do though is be able to interact with the audience. So we're excited about where this is going to go and where we're trying to go with this. So if you guys have questions for us, we would love you to throw them in the chat box, and we would love to hear your questions on team building or anything that you want to ask Jules or Jason or myself. And I'm going to start out by asking you guys some questions, and we're going to have a dialogue back and forth. And if you do ask a question, and we have who is the ILMB? You have the mug. So Jason, I'll take this mug here for a second, or can you maybe hold it up, Jason, at that camera? So ILMB Mortgage Brokering Live mug. If you ask a question, then you have a chance to win one. So you can't buy them in stores. You can't get them at Walmart or anywhere or HomeSense. They're only available by interacting as part of our community. So we'd love to interact with you. So first, I'll talk to Jason first. So I'm going to talk to you first, Jules. So what have you learned from working on building a team in the last year?
I would say this year has been full of lessons. We've definitely learned a lot.
Could they hear me before?
Yeah, that's fine.
I would say the number one thing that I learned this year as far as building a team is to make sure that you're really clear on what it is that you need and what it is that you want as far as your team members. I think hiring for your future volume, for your goals, and not where you are right now, so that you're not hiring out of necessity and rushing into things. I would say those are probably the biggest things I learned this year.
Mm-hmm. Same with me in the past. When I've when you're stressed, you usually make bad hiring decisions. You're just like, please, somebody take this off my plate. But usually it turns into a bit of a mess. And so, Jason, maybe just tell us a little bit about. So you had a mortgage company for many years, and now you have a company called Doc Assist, which does basically underwriting and support services for mortgage brokers. So tell me about what you found when you were running a mortgage brokerage and the challenges of team.
Yeah, for sure. And I got to say, your setup is awesome. Like, if anybody, I don't think anybody's seen this. I think I'm the first one to come into the studio.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing, and this is the first conversation where I'm going to talk to you, Scott, over my shoulder.
Right.
It's a little bit awkward, but. I think Jules is right. Hiring for where you're going versus where you are is really important. It's also one of the biggest challenges, because hiring for where you're going means you're spending money that you're not earning yet. And so you're when you're a solo entrepreneur building a team, you have to allocate the resources for it, and sometimes the money isn't there. And so growing a team from the ground up, it can be very expensive and time consuming, and you tend to be reactive, looking to add people when you need it as opposed to forward thinking. And that's just one of the hardest parts about building a team.
One of the things I found is that I'm personally not very good at hiring people. So I'm the kind of person who would hire an axe murderer, provided they're like, they seem nice, and as long as they don't bring an axe to work, we'll probably get along fine. But honestly, so having somebody help you with it if you're not good at it, or outsourcing it altogether, is definitely a good idea, because I've always, And the other thing that I've learned too when it comes to hiring staff is that you can't have bigger dreams for them than they have for themselves. So you can be like, I met you, this is going to be great. We're going to do all these great things together, and you're so excited. And they're like, well, that's not my dream. And then and then creates that friction of you having a different dream than they have. And so, and I've been disappointed numerous times by this, those situations where you have a different dream than them. So, yeah, for sure, that's a challenge for me. Anything else you'd want to add?
No, yeah, getting on the same page with your team is really important, and being able to clearly communicate what you want someone to do. And I think when I first started building my team, that was one of the biggest obstacles. Was forget communicating it, but just even knowing what I wanted someone else to do was a big part of the challenge. And I think you learn that by hiring someone. And so I hired an axe murderer, as you said, and you realize, and this person's going to maybe not kill me, but they'll kill my business. So they're not the right person. And then you learn what you want and what you don't want. It's kind of like dating, actually, and eventually
we could do a show on dating.
Yeah.
Just clearly understanding what you want out of your team, and then being able to articulate that to your team really can eliminate a lot of friction.
And I think that's a really good point too. I think being really clear on what it is that you want and you need for your team. And then prior to hiring that person, letting them know, being very clear with them what it is that you're looking for, who it is that you need, what your goals are, and making sure that those are in alignment with theirs as well. And it has to be, like Scott always says, and it's so true, it has to be a win-win or it's not going to work. So I think that's really important, is being very clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. So I'm going to ask you this first, Jules. So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about hiring?
So I feel like I almost kind of answered that, but I think that to start out, figuring out what your goals are, being very clear on what your goals are, make a list of what you want to accomplish in the next year or the next few years, and then make a list of what you need in order to accomplish those. And from that list, find the tasks that you are really good at or that you want to focus on, and then find the tasks that you could have somebody else do. And just be really clear on what it is that you need. And again, articulate and match the person or that you're planning on hiring to make sure that it fits with their values and their needs. I feel like, like you mentioned, and I think for us as well, is that when you don't take the time to think about it, when you're hiring out of necessity, sometimes you rush into something that may not be a fit for you or them, and it's not going to work. So I would say just being really clear on what you need.
What's your best advice for somebody who's thinking of hiring?
Yeah, give a lot of forethought to what you want to do. I totally am in agreement with Jules on that one. Understanding where you're going to take your business. So it's not just what you need now or next year, but understanding sort of what your business looks like when it's fully grown. And so for some people, that's $100 million for in volume. For others, it's 50 or 25 or whatever it might be. And then sort of mapping out, like, to hit those volumes, how many people am I going to need, and who am I going to hire in the right order? So, you don't just want to find the right people, but you want to find the right people at the right time and plug them in to that growth process.
Right. One of the things I think too that was been really helpful, and we worked with you back on episode 4, I think, on this, was just having your customer journey mapped out. Because when you have the whole process mapped out step by step, then you can at least go, okay, when you hire someone, because in the past I've hired people, and I hired my wife once, actually. I rehired her. And she said, okay, I'll come back to work, but you got to buy me a new car. And so I said, okay, yeah, I bought her a car. And then she quit after 2 days, but she kept the car. So she's a lot smarter than me. But what happened was that she came to work for me, but I didn't have my process, and I didn't know what to get her to do. So I'm like, she's sitting there working, and or I come in, I'm working. She said, what am I doing? And I'm like, I'll get to it. And because I couldn't give her any work to do, she's just like, I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I quit. And so I was like, crap. I should have got some better contract or something, a lawyer involved. But in any case, I think not having that mapped out is kind of the foundational thing that you have to do if you're ever going to have a team or help or anything. Otherwise, you don't know how are you going to know what to get them to do?
Totally. Think about it. You wouldn't want to go and take a job somewhere if you didn't understand what the roles and responsibilities were for that job, right? Like you wouldn't accept. You wouldn't accept that. And so when we're hiring people to come and support our businesses as mortgage professionals, we need to up our game. We need to be thinking about setting clear expectations, and so that everybody comes to the relationship knowing what's expected.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
So what do you think, I'll ask you this first, Jason, what is the biggest mistake you think you've made when it comes to team?
So I don't have to think too hard to start thinking about mistakes. I've made a lot of them. The biggest one I probably made was when I first started building team. This is going back about 10 years. This was way before we built Doc Assist. Was undervaluing my contribution as a team lead to the team. And my first, so now I'm getting down to compensation. And my first arrangements with underwriting assistants were basically traditional co-broker, traditional like broker split models. And I gave way too much of my money away. And what happened was I was spending so much of my time out in the community, driving new business, and I didn't put enough value on the lead generation and the managing of the referral sources and the campaigns that would bring that business in. And so I was basically working way harder to feed a team of people, and I wasn't bringing any money home. And so, it's a delicate balance. You want to compensate people well enough so that they stick around and then they do good work and you find the right people, but you also have to put your business owner hat on and make sure you structure the financials for your business in a way that's scalable.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Jules? Biggest mistake you think you've made when it comes to team?
Honestly, I feel like a broken record, but I think this is just my biggest mistake, and what I'm working on and going forward is really just not being clear about what it is that we need. I think that, like you said earlier, hiring out of necessity, being so busy that you almost don't have time to tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. And if you don't plan it out and you're not clear on what that is, then you end up doing a lot of it yourself. So I think that was, my biggest mistake in the past is hiring out of necessity, not being really clear about what it is that we need and what that person is going to do to help us. And perhaps, not bringing on the right people as a result, and because they didn't share the same vision as us, mm-hmm. because how could they know? We weren't, as clear as we could be. That's my biggest lesson and the biggest challenge, I think.
Right. So how do you avoid bad hires? What's the advice for that, Jason? You've hired a few people in your day.
Oh man, I'm still trying to figure out how to avoid bad hires. So we've got a team now of 14 underwriters at Doc Assist that are supporting our different programs. And in the last 2 years, I think we've hired 25 people to get to 14. We now have a process where they get interviewed by 3 separate people on the team, and we do aptitude tests. We're even going to start giving them dummy files to underwrite, package, structure notes, like the whole 9 yards. So I've actually hired someone and let them go on the first day that they started, because the thing you have to remember is people are at their best in the interview. Like, you are never going to get better than at that moment when you're interviewing them, because they are putting their best foot forward. The day they start, it's never as good.
It's kind of like dating and marriage, maybe.
Oh, it's totally like a dating site. Like, look at this awesome picture, and this Henneberry guy looks good, and then you meet him in real life.
he's not 6 feet tall like his profile says.
Totally, you do the downward face, or whatever. Yeah. It actually happened to me in high school. There's a picture of me that's standing on a stage, mm-hmm. and someone saw it and tried to date me, and then they saw me in real life, and that was the first thing they said. You're way shorter.
Then you expected. That is hilarious.
The relationship, yeah. So anyway, we're totally sidetracked now. I have no idea.
How do you avoid bad hires?
Yeah, it's tough. You avoid bad hires by having a good hiring process, essentially. Mm-hmm. And one trick I learned this by reading something in, I think it was Inc.com. If you ask someone what was a negative experience that they had at a previous work environment. So this is kind of a weird question. Like, tell me about the last place you worked, and tell me about the things that bugged you about some of your coworkers, right? Because there's this whole concept of what you see in other people as a reflection of yourself. So people tend to have no problem sharing stories that are negative about other people that aren't relevant. And typically they're identifying characteristics and traits about themselves through that process. Mm-hmm. It's the one question that really gives you some clarity on who the person is across the table from you. So it's a good question to ask.
You know who Nick Lequier is? So he's a mortgage guy and so he was telling me that, I'm pretty sure it was Nick. I could have, but anyway, so what he had done was, no, it wasn't Nick. It was a guy that I met in Halifax. And so they were hiring an admin assistant, and they were like, we want somebody who's attentive, who cares about taking care of customers. And so part of the job interview was actually when the person was sitting in the lobby, they would have somebody walk by and drop papers and see if they would help. And seriously, they were like, they'd walk by and go, oh my goodness. And it was like, would they get off their chair and help? And if they were, then that's the kind of person that we want on our team versus somebody who sits there and goes, not my job. Right. And I was like, dude, that's genius. So if you,
it's good stuff, right?
Yeah. If you're meeting them live, you could drop papers and be like, what are they going to do? It might be awkward if you're just in the office, you go, boom, just drop them.
That's the one test we put all our underwriters through. If they pick up paper, they're hired.
They pick up paper. So avoiding bad hires. And so any advice from you, Jules? What do you think?
Well, I think I'm still learning. I like what Jason said, and you as well, Scott. I think outsourcing it or having a few levels of checks throughout the hiring process, and I think really important, obviously, as an underwriter role, is giving them a mock file. And what would you do? Who would you send it to? How would you structure this? That's really important. You can't go in expecting them to know that or expecting that their knowledge is what you think it is. I think that's a really good idea.
A guy that I know here in town, he's got a tech company, and they just raised like $15 million or something. And I asked him, so how do you, and they've been hiring really quickly, right? They got to add like lots of staff. And he said what they do with their coders is they give them a problem to solve. They say, here's a problem, go solve it. And then how they solve that problem actually tells them a lot about how they think. So are they clean in their code? There's a whole bunch of stuff that they're looking for. But I think, when it comes to underwriting, that's actually a good idea. Maybe you take a problem file that you had and you say, what would you do with this? Tell me how you think.
I love that.
And then it gives you it just gives you insight into their thinking, and you can, and it also gives you a coaching opportunity if you decide to go down that route. But I think the other piece that I would add to as well is it's useful to do especially if you're trying to add a team member that's going to do a different role than you. So if you're the salesperson, is personality tests. And so I like the DISC profile, and the DISC profile, if you have somebody who's a high D, which is usually they got to be in charge. You're a high D. I guarantee you're probably off the charts because you got to be in charge, and so are you, and so am I. And then there's I, which is sort of your interacting with others. And somebody who's exactly like you is probably not going to be a great admin assistant, because eventually they're going to want to be you. They're going to be like, I like, and I've in the past, I've hired people who are just like me. They're like a marketing person. They love marketing, but they're terrible at paperwork. And I'm like, well, this doesn't help me because I need help with my paperwork, and I don't need another marketing person. I need somebody to help me with the admin stuff. So I think trying to be aware of the differences in how we're wired and not hiring somebody just like you is what I would try to do. And so, any other thoughts on that, Jason?
No, yeah, we're using personality tests as well. I have a personal story about personality tests. So one of my business
you failed
is I failed the personality test. Good time. There was this test where you see how well you work with other people. So you do a test, the other person does a test, and then it matches whether or not you should work together. And my brother and I did this years ago. And this test, my brother's one of my business partner, and we work phenomenally well together. And this test was like, no, you cannot work with this person. So I also take personality tests with a bit of a grain of salt, but they are cool to sort of just understand.
And you guys still work together?
I would still work together. I couldn't imagine a better business partner. So some of these tests, you really do have to just take that into consideration. That's all they are. They're just a series of questions that put you on a grid. It doesn't tell you really who that person is, but it definitely helps.
Right. Anything else you want to add, Jules? Good. Okay, so I'm looking at. I see Glenn is here. We've got Bernard, Sharon, Vars. If you guys have any questions for us, we'd love you to interact. Plus, this is how you get your hands on a mug, one of Jason's mugs. So if you have a question you would like to, here's a good question. What is your favorite interview question? So why don't you answer that? Because I'm terrible at interviewing. I'm like, are you an axe murderer? That would probably be mine. What's yours? And everybody says no.
He stole my file.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love that movie. That's why I think of it. I love that movie.
Yeah.
So,
so my favorite interview question is the one that I was talking about, which is, what can you tell me some personality traits about some people that you used to work with that really bugged you, that sort of thing. So I think we kind of covered that. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have any? What would you ask, Jules?
I think that's great. It depends who you're hiring for, I guess. Like I said, if we're doing an underwriter hire, I would certainly want to ask them a mock file and how they would position it. I think that's a great question. I would definitely use that.
Okay, so this is from Bernard. Thank you, Bernard. Customer, hire Doc Assist and let them do the work for you. Did you hire him to put him? Did you tell him to come on here? I'm just kidding.
I got to tell Bernard, if it's all right, I'll let everybody know. Bernard's one of our supporting brokers.
Yeah.
And we work closely.
Actually, he said that to us privately, and I read it out. Sorry, Bernard, didn't mean to do that. But actually, Bernard has an interesting business model because, which I probably have him on the show sometime, but it's pretty like. He's the board broker almost, like, because of the way he's got so systematized, it's bonkers. And Glenn wants you to bring back some mugs from Vancouver. So we got the question from Sharon. What avenue have you found successful in finding staff? So we have used Indeed in the past. We've used Friends. We've used, referral, maybe asking ask a BDM that you trust if they know somebody who likes putting together files but doesn't want like sales. Like when we've looked for underwriting in the past, that's worked for us. What about you, Jason? How do you find? Because you've got a lot of staff. So where do you find them all?
So it's a very narrow pool of qualified underwriters in our industry. I can't tell you.
You don't tell us? It's secret.
I'll tell you how I do it. I will. So we've done a combination of things. One, we've got some exposure. We have a lot of people through some of our programs like Lender Spotlight and so on. So we have just emailed our own database to brokers. That's worked out well. We've also posted ads on Mortgage Broker News, which works well. And Canadian Mortgage Trends has an employee section, like a for hire section. And then Facebook ads. You can just go and target people through LinkedIn and like social media that have the underwriting designation, and it's like dirt cheap to find them. So, yeah. So we do that constantly.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's switch now. So let's talk a little bit about our plan. So part of this was like talking about hiring. We also want to talk about what's happening with the $100 million journey. And so we've had some staff challenges and just like, and great people. I don't want to say, I'm not at all indicating that it's just, you got to have alignment. You got to have the same vision. You got to want the same things. And sometimes things like Ellie moving away because she just, her was a family situation. And so, so we've been like, okay, how do we solve our staffing issue? And so we've partnered with the Cube, which is powered by Doc Assist at our brokerage. And so we're excited about, getting rid of some of those headaches that of this finding someone. And so tell us a little bit about that, Jason.
Yeah, for sure. So the Cube is one of our white labels. So at Doc Assist, we have our different underwriting support services. And one of the things we started doing last year was providing essentially a white label of the Doc Assist admin services for large brokerages in the sort of $1.5 billion range. And so, Jules, you're at CME with Mike Lloyd and the team. And so they invited us in to take a look at the Cube, and we started managing that last year with them, and that's been going really, really well. So I'm really excited that you're going to try the service for the $100 million journey. I think it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're really excited too. And I think the biggest thing, just going back to what we talked about today, is that we don't want to rush into a hire. We don't want to hire necessity. And right now, we are too busy to really be focusing on that. So you talked to us about the opportunity to use that system through the Cube, and we're super excited because we can literally start sending files your way immediately. There's no training required. There's no hiring required, and we can start it. And I can relieve some stress off of my plate, and
if you go and get more, and you go get more business too.
Yeah, focus on going and getting more business and doing what I love to do. So we are really excited. Thank you.
One of the things I like about the model that you have is that there's built-in redundancy. So essentially it's like this, you've got some, if it's, because when you have one person that's working with you, because we really have a big dream, like most people are not out to lunch like us and say we want to do 100 million. But because we have a big dream, we know that there's, you're going to need more staff, and we're going to, it's not going to be done with two people. Unless you're going to, it's not possible. But so you'd like to have a life too. We don't want you working 70 hours a week. And so, but when you hire one person, if something happens to them where they go on holidays or they get sick, all of a sudden you get sucked back into the operations when you should be focusing on sales.
Yes.
And so what I like about with this, what we're doing with the Cube and with Doc Assist is that it has built-in redundancy, right? So you want to speak to that a little bit about how you guys design it that way?
Yeah, totally. So I'm just like you, Jules. Like I want to be home at 5 o'clock. I've got 3 young kids. So when we started building these underwriting support services for our own business, it was really important to create that redundancy. We didn't figure that out at first, though. And so it was my brother and I managing a bunch of deals. And we had Carrie, who was our underwriter, who now oversees all of Doc Assist, actually. Whenever Carrie called in sick or said, she needed to take a week off, it was like we had to turn everything off. It was chaos. Our families didn't see us. It was bad. And so we realized then we had to hire, another underwriter, and the expense of that was huge at the time because we really only had enough deal flow for one person. So, and that's how we started building our support services. So when you're a solo entrepreneur, creating that redundancy, if you're going to build your own team, is phenomenally expensive because redundancy comes at the cost of a salary. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool about the Cube and our Doc Assist services is the redundancy comes built in with each file. And so for the $100 million journey, like right out of the gate, you get 2 underwriters where you can round robin your files to in the Cube. And there's a team lead for escalations and sensitive client issues and so on. And you get all that at the scaled cost, which is really awesome. So that's,
totally.
You're going to love that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we're excited about using this service, and for me too, the biggest thing is just making, you've got to be happy, right? Like, because if Jules ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's what it's on the wall of my office. Like, but and not having to, because in our market, there's just not a lot of it's hard to find, good experienced talent. Not everybody, for some reason, there's more underwriters in other markets. And so an outsourced option for us, it looks looks promising because of the fact that there's just not a lot of people that are a good fit, right? Would you agree?
I totally agree. Who knows how long it would take us to find that, like you say. So, our kind of going into this year, we were thinking, okay, well, maybe we'll just, take our time with it and figure it out. Maybe by March or April, we'll have something. Well, March or April, that's a long way away when we're working all by myself and doing the files reviews. This is just an
and you've hit the year running
immediate option for us.
Absolutely. So,
yeah, you're already putting out some big numbers this year. So, if you want to maintain it, it's going to require definitely some help. So,
and there's always a period of time, whether you're building your own team or you're plugging into an admin service like ours in the Cube. There's always that period of time where you learn to jive with your underwriting team, because at the end of the day, our business, it's a people business. Yeah, we're pushing paper, but it's people working together, supporting Canadian homeowners, and it's a mortgage and it's sensitive. And then you've got lenders and underwriters and BDMs. It's all people. And so, when you're building a team, you have to allow for that, but you're doing the right thing. I mean, you're busy right out of the gate. I've seen your volumes. You're going to have a killer year. And I'm glad we're getting to this before the spring, because you're right. If you tried to be reactive in April, May, it takes months to train someone. It takes months to do that integration and get to that place where you're flowing with your team. So this is awesome.
Cool. Any last words, Jules?
No, I'm just excited. So, yeah.
Cool. I love the coffee bags you can see in the corner. So those are for sound dampening. I don't know if you can see them behind Jules, but there's these coffee bags that are full of foam. And so they were in my podcast room, but now they're in the audio room. So that's my ADD kicking in. I apologize. So thank you guys for checking this out, and reach out to us. We'll select somebody from the questions to send them a mug. It'll be random. You won't know who until it shows up in your mail. Matt will take care of that. And thanks